Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a behind-the-scenes factory tour. But, we're not looking at how cars or smartphones are built. Instead, we're looking at how data science takes our messy, chaotic, everyday online opinions and actually refines them into powerful tools that keep us safe. We are going to walk through a genuinely groundbreaking research study from the University of Kelowna, and it shows exactly how angry consumer rants on the internet can be transformed into structured data for much safer food choices.
Because let's be honest, we've all been there, right? You're standing in the grocery store aisles staring at two totally identical looking products. How do you actually know which one is safe to feed your family? We are constantly bombarded by deceptive marketing, flashy promos, and completely confusing nutritional labels. And if you try to check online reviews, well, it's usually just a paralyzing mess of random opinions. It's a highly relatable everyday dilemma. But as we're about to see, researchers are finally finding a way to cut through all that noise.
So here is the roadmap for what we'll be covering today. 1. The food choice dilemma. 2. Mining social media opinions. 3. The translation pipeline. 4. Human-powered sentiment scoring. And finally, 5. Empowering future consumers.
All right, let's dive right in with Section 1, the food choice dilemma. To solve the massive challenge of avoiding unsafe food, researchers turned to something called aspect-based sentiment analysis. Let's define this simply so we're all on the exact same page. Usually, when you review a product online, you might just give it 3 out of 5 stars, right? It's a generic thumbs up or thumbs down. But aspect-based sentiment analysis is way smarter than that. It breaks a review down into specific traits or aspects. So instead of just saying, hey, this milk is bad, the system actually recognizes that a consumer is specifically complaining about the price being too high or the safety being questionable.
Which brings us to Section 2, mining social media opinions. Now check out this number, 57.28%. That is the percentage of social media users in Sri Lanka who are actively sharing opinions on Facebook between September 2020 and September 2021. This just proves exactly why electronic word of mouth is an absolute goldmine. People are already out there, right now, actively sharing their experiences and their warnings with the world. So to tap into that gold mine, the researchers built a Python scraper script to pull in their initial, messy inventory of data. They extracted exactly 1,574 comments from 2 massive public Facebook groups, each boasting over 100,000 members. They specifically focused on dairy products and beverages, capturing all these timely discussions that were happening right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, which makes sense, right? Because health and food safety were heavily on absolutely everyone's minds.
Let's move along to Section 3, the translation pipeline. If you've ever scrolled through Facebook comments, you know it's just absolute chaos. On the left here, you see the noise. People use emojis, hashtags, weird punctuation, and in Sri Lanka, it's this wild mix of Sinhala script and English slang. It is totally ambiguous for a computer. But on the right, you see what the data scientists actually need: pristine, machine-ready text. To get from the chaos on the left to the signal on the right, the researchers used Python libraries to literally strip away the emojis, the symbols, and all that useless noise.
And this flowchart brings us to the next massive hurdle, language. The system looks at a comment and asks, is this English? If yes, great, move on. If not, it checks if it's in Sinhala. If it is, the system automatically uses the Google Translator API to translate it into English. But take a look at that bottom left box. If a comment was written in Singlish, which is this phonetic mix of Sinhala and English, it had to be completely thrown out. Why? Because right now there is literally no publicly available automated tool that can accurately translate Singlish at a sentence level. It's such a fascinating limitation of modern text mining.
All right, on to Section 4, human-powered sentiment scoring. Before anyone started scoring anything, researchers had to figure out what consumers actually care about the most. So, based on a real consumer survey of over 400 individuals in Sri Lanka, the price of a food product was actually the biggest driving factor in a purchase. It was given a mathematical weight of 3.78. Safeness of the product came in a very close second, with a weight of 3.56. Keep those numbers in mind because these weights become absolutely crucial later in the mathematical process.
So imagine you're one of these human annotators from the University of Kelowna. Here is a real translated comment from the study dataset that you might be looking at. It says, D001 milk powder contains toxic matter, so useless to buy at a high price. As an annotator, you have to painstakingly decipher exactly what this user is complaining about. Look at how they break that single sentence down. Instead of just slapping a generic 1 star on it, they split it into our 2 critical aspects.
For the safety aspect, they caught the word toxic and gave it a rank of 1, meaning very negative. For the price aspect, they saw the phrase high price and gave it a rank of 2, meaning negative. If the comment hadn't mentioned an aspect at all, it would just get a neutral 3. This dual scoring method right here, this is the absolute heart of aspect-based sentiment analysis. But here's the catch. If you only have one person scoring these comments, human bias is definitely going to creep in. So, 2 different annotators score the comments completely separately. Then, to mathematically verify that these 2 humans weren't just making random guesses, the researchers used a formula called Cohen's kappa. It calculates the inter-annotator agreement level. And because the Cohen's kappa score showed the 2 annotators largely agreed with each other, the researchers knew for sure that their data was solid and totally reliable. Finally, we reach section 5, empowering future consumers. So we have clean text and we have human-verified sentiment scores. How do we turn these into an algorithm-ready dataset? The researchers used this incredibly elegant 3-step mathematical crunch. First, they averaged the ratings given by the 2 human annotators. Second, they multiplied that average by those consumer survey weights we talked about earlier, 3.78 for price or 3.56 for safety. And third, they applied something called min-max scaling. This perfectly normalizes all those clunky human opinions into a single, highly readable decimal between 0 and 1. Once you've got that clean decimal, you use what's called a binning technique to translate the math right back into simple human terms. If the final scaled score falls anywhere between 0.0 and 0.2, it gets labeled very negative. If it's up between 0.8 and 1.0, it's very positive. And just like that, this creates a perfectly structured dataset that is fully ready to train machine learning models. So, zooming out for a second, why does this tedious, behind-the-scenes data factory actually matter to you and me? Well, because an analysis-ready dataset gives massive power back to the public. It allows developers to build analytical end-user apps that you can check right there in the grocery store aisle. It empowers health officials, economists, and government bodies like the Consumer Affairs Authority to conduct social opinion-oriented surveys. It literally bridges the gap between chaotic internet complaining and real-world public health policy. And that leaves us with a pretty wild question to ponder. If data scientists can scrape our angry Facebook comments about milk powder, clean them up, translate them, mathematically score them, and literally turn them into an early warning system for unsafe food, what other everyday crises could big data solve next? The noise of social media isn't just noise anymore, you guys. In the right hands, it is an absolute superpower. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the data around you.